Obviously, we want to kind of kick off here with welcome to the September 16th, 2020 DXgov governance discussion. I just pasted the agenda in the chat. We'll be going through a couple things, but we wanted to start off with the Delphi digital report, or I guess kind of update on some governance things, and kind of kick off a discussion there. So want to turn it over to Anil and Nadia and the Delphi.
Perfect.
Sure.
Hey guys, MJ, can you share your screen?
Yep, doing that right now.
Nice. Yeah, and before we even get started, right? One thing we want to get clear to is, a lot of these parameters and stuff we can change. We have just, put a lot of thought into finding the balance between one, incentivizing current, rep whales to, be okay with this, where they're not losing a lot of their influence. But two, really thinking about incentivizing new members to join the DAO and, not only join the DAO, but really start participating and, getting skin in the game as far as, long-term alignment.
Yep. And yeah, I could take it from there. And, I hope everyone had a chance to read through it. We have a model that we can also share that is used for the analysis in the report. But I think at just like the high level, what we want to start with is the concept of, what we're really trying to accomplish here, where, there's different aspects that should be taken into account, we believe, when voting power is determined. Obviously, there's been a lot of discussion, and we feel this way where, we like the fact that REP and DXD have different roles in governance. But in that sense that, DXD doesn't really have a role right now, but understanding the financial interest and then the reputation for governance breakout, we understand why that can be a good model and, can prevent a lot of the issues that can arise from, like a liquid governance model where people just buy up a lot of tokens, come in, vote, and, can mess with some proposals and manipulate voting power. So we understand how, a non-transferable token like REP can really help prevent against situations like that. But what we wanted to do here was we wanted to incorporate different aspects of being a DAO member into someone's voting power. So we basically broke this up into like three pillars that combine into voting power. One, you have DXD staked, which is your capital at risk, and this acts as your base voting power. And then from there, we build on top of that. Your rep balance, that's earned from past work and previous staking, and that's a multiplier on your base voting power. But that's a trailing input, and someone who's done a lot of work for the DAO for maybe 5 years hits a point where they're not going to be that engaged or interested anymore. In which case, how do we incorporate, like forward-looking commitments to the DAO? Because ideally, you want people that have skin in the game, have a long track record, earning that reputation, working for the DAO, being a good member, but also people that are comfortable. If I vote a certain way on a proposal, I'll have to essentially like live with this outcome, and that's where like the future days staked comes into play. The way that we have this structured right now is, staking DXD is, required to vote, but if you just have a lot of DXD and you stake it on its own, your voting power isn't really much. So, for example, and this is something that we show a little bit later. We have in the model as well that we can kind of go through. DXD is like your ticket to vote, but the multipliers from your rep balance and your forward-looking commitment, that's really what can magnify it. And we wanted to do it this way because we felt like this was a good in between of giving DXD some voting power, but if they don't have a reputation balance, if they're not going to lock up these tokens for a month, 2 months, however long the community decides is a good amount of time, then we don't want them to have outsized influence right away, especially. So those are like the three core pillars of this that we thought could be a good revamp. I can kind of click through some of the other slides to go show how this looks. Starting with just the rep multiplier. we have an existing rep distribution that, is very concentrated at the top. And, we wanted to get a situation where, like Anil had said, this new proposal is palatable to existing large rep holders because, it still gives them a boost over everyone else in the DAO. But, moving forward, if we have a lot of rep issuance, it's kind of like a reset button where if they want to keep participating, if they want to stake their DXD, if they want to keep working for the DAO, then they'll have the opportunity to, keep adding to their rep. But, if they kind of like take a back seat and they're not so interested moving forward, eventually the rep issuance will kind of dilute away the large amount that they might hold. We did a distribution on the rep holder base, and 90% of addresses with rep have have a small balance, less than 20,000. Most are even much smaller than that. And the way that this rep multiplier was structured is, as you can see, leading up to 20,000 rep, it's a much steeper curve, and then it tapers off so that the rise is less extreme and more gradual over time to prevent against large rep holders just getting too big of a multiplier on their voting power. Of course, this curve can change. This is more so just like a concept we wanted to throw out there. So by no means is this all said and done. And then we wanted the formula to be something that could also be updated. So certain variables like how important the rep balance is in the formula. 5 years from now, if we're looking at really big numbers, you can devise that, you can cut that down, you can adjust basically how it's weighted in the formula. And that's kind of like the thought process there. To go hand in hand with the rep component is the issuance. And this is something where we don't want to just snap our fingers and have a big rep supply right away. This is something that we want to have available for incentives so that, when new members join the DAO, they can, essentially play catch up and start earning a good amount of rep. And so that the existing member base also has a chance to, start accumulating more rep. And the idea being that, right now it's a little top heavy, but, over time, as new members come in, as more people participate, it'll start to even out more just from the issuance. And this is a great incentive that we can use because, unlike DXD, where if you inflate that supply, it dilutes the financial value of it. With rep, there's really no cost to. I mean, you have a cost in the sense that existing rep holders can be diluted if they're not working and earning. But I mean, that's also kind of like a good thing where, you don't want reputation to just be this thing where, if you have an outsized portion once, you're just like stuck in the top influencer in kind of perpetuity. So that, this model is a nice in between where it gives that ability for new people to join and have a say. And then going into future day staked, I thought, this is one of the perhaps more interesting concepts that could be toggled with. And, going to the idea of, let's say you have a really big, someone buys up a lot of DXD, they come in, they stake, maybe they don't have that much, they don't have any rep, but, future day staked is another part of the formula they could play on where your voting power on, let's say, like, for example, we have a vote coming up and it's a really important one. And, for me to for me to multiply my voting power on this vote, I have to commit to lock my tokens for a prolonged period of time. And, one thing that's interesting here is if someone agrees to lock their DXD for too short of amount of time. So let's say I don't want to lock my tokens at all. I'm just going to lock them for like one more day on this vote and then I'm out. Even if I had a massive amount of DXD, the way this formula works is that this actually reduces your voting power in that situation. So, this is good in the sense that, if you buy up a lot of DXD and you come in and you're not committed to the future, your voting power is actually going to be very, very small in this model. Whereas someone who doesn't have that much DXD, but has a good amount of rep and is willing to commit their stake for a month, 2 months, maybe even a year, they really get a really nice multiplier while the short-term members are kind of getting penalized for not agreeing to lock in over the long amount of time. And, just pulling that all together, each one of these components on their own, it doesn't give you much influence in governance. You maximize it when you have capital at risk, when you have a lot of reputation earned, and when you're willing to commit yourself to the future. That's kind of like the sweet spot. And if there's a member that, has all three of those things, then, it's probably a good thing that they have, higher voting power, because they're committed, they've worked hard, and they have the most at risk. And then, just to go through some scenarios, obviously you have to, okay, let's say we go with this. What does this actually look like? What does this mean? There's a DXD holder base out there. We know what that distribution looks like. There's a rep holder base out there. We know what that distribution looks like. Essentially, what we did to be conservative is you just take the rep holders in from highest to lowest in descending order, and then you, to be really conservative, we did the same for DXD. And even though this may not be the case, let's assume that the biggest rep holder is also the biggest DXD holder, aside from the treasury and all of that. And at that point, we can basically kind of just toggle future days staked. So like, how much would they be willing to commit themselves moving forward? And we have a few scenarios. Scenario one is the one that's most geared towards the existing top 10 rep holders. We're gonna lock our stuff for 2 months while everyone else just locks their stuff for 10 days, in which case incurring a penalty because it's under the 30-day threshold that we have in this model right now. And as you can see, like the voting power, it does become a little bit more concentrated, but it's not that crazy. And then the other models, like scenario two, if everyone just agrees to do a 30-day stake each, and that's right at the threshold, so there's not even a multiplier from FDS in that, then the voting power shifts more towards everyone else. And then in scenario three, you have if the top 10 rep holders only want to commit their stake for 10 days, but all of these smaller DXD and rep holders want to commit themselves for 2 months. Obviously, you can see how voting power shifts to the majority. So we felt like this could be a good in between, where it's giving DXD a role, but it's not giving it an outsized role, because voting power is really determined based on like the other multipliers you add on top of it, and it doesn't put the existing rep holders who have done a lot of work for the DAO at a disadvantage, because right away you can get to a situation where, as long as they have modest DXD balances, which you would hope is the case, if you have a lot of rep, you would hope that you have at least a decent amount of DXD as well. Then just based on like reasonable expectations on forward-looking commitments, your voting power really doesn't change much near term. It's just over the long term, if you're not earning it, if you're not committing a stake, if you're not working for the DAO anymore, if you don't want to lock your tokens, that's when you get penalized. So at a high level, that's what we were thinking through. Happy to kind of talk through different parts of the formula. Happy to change parts of the formula, change inputs. Really what we wanted to do was put this concept out there, get some feedback, and find a way where we can revamp governance that benefits the rest of the existing member base, but also new members moving forward.
Cool. Thanks so much for putting this together. I mean, I think just in thinking about the last couple hours in the Keybase in here, it's great that kind of the conversation that started, and a lot of things that people have been discussing for a long time, but kind of the idea that you kind of presented provides some structure, and we can kind of talk about more specifics. Augusto, I'm just looking in the chat. Was there something you wanted to go over, or that you had seen?
Yeah, as I pointed out on Keybase, well, the entire analysis of the entire formula appeared from issues that were identified, which I think that, some of them, like the half of them, some of them, they are non-existent. And I think that they propose some issues that they are actually not, well, some of them, they are inexistent, and it seems that it doesn't have a clear understanding of how the holographic consensus works, and how the actual governance process is working around right now. So I mean, if you start planting, if you start proposing a formula from issues that are fundamentally wrong or they don't exist, that makes like the entire analysis later like invalid. I don't know. That's what I want to hear from you guys from Delphi. How do you came up to with those issues? Because I think there are some of them. There are maybe not issues, but something where we can work on. For example, using DXC as staking. But I was surprised by seeing like the gen attack that can happen. Like, okay, so interested to hear about that.
Yeah, I think like, the gen component, we didn't want to stress on too much. It was more so just kind of like us throwing out things that we were thinking about. And, obviously with us incorporating, another component like future days staked and, adding some complexity there, and also adding DXD's role in governance, just just to keep it simple for people. We thought, maybe having too many things involved in the governance would be too bad. So, we subbed out Gen, subbed in DXD, added, other things like forward-looking commitments. That was really kind of just what we were going for, where, if we're adding complexity here, we want to kind of just like take away some stuff elsewhere. But I mean, some of the other, to your point, some of the other issues, issues are kind of like subjective, right? What one person thinks may not be the case for someone else. So, that's kind of just how we were thinking about it. But, even if some of those issues, that some of the bullet points that we listed, you don't agree with, I do think there could be merit in the rest of the stuff that we're talking about. Yeah.
Can you go through them? Can you go to the issues layer and go through each of them and explain?
I guess like there's just to where the report is, right? So there's like, this is why you guys are kind of bringing these things up in these suggestions, and then there's actually the suggestions, and like kind of the whatever path forward, kind of discussing that. I think it's fine to kind of briefly go over, maybe just provide some context on like where you see the shortcomings in the current system.
Yeah, absolutely. And happy to just go, point by point. DXD needs a role in governance. I think everyone, kind of feels that's a good point to bring up. Bullet point 2, we'll just take an L on that and concede, concede to your point. 3, staking needs to be implemented so that people voting on proposals have skin in the game. Again, that kind of goes hand in hand with DXD having some say, and that makes sense. And it would be nice if people who were willing to stake longer had voting power. Nothing crazy there, I don't think. Bullet point 4, I think, is a good one. There needs to be a transparent direct link between DXD and rep held by members. So right now this is really broken up across different addresses. So only, like 63 bips of the DXD supply is held by addresses that also have rep. And, privacy, totally understand that's a big component here. But, one thing that, we were afraid of out from the existing model is, you could have really big rep holders voting on proposals, directing the DAO in a certain direction. Meanwhile, because there's no way for anyone to really connect how much DXD they're holding, it could be selling. And that's a possibility, and should be something where we try to address it. And with the model where you stake DXD, you earn rep, and then they're kind of like linked together. That could be a really nice system where you can't have that happen, where someone's voting on proposals and then just dumping their DXD on the market with no one knowing. So I think that's pretty reasonable. Control needs to be more decentralized. That's also pretty reasonable. Currently, the top 10 rep holders make up 50% of the supply. So, the DXD supply is a little more decentralized than that. So, giving base voting power to DXD stakers, we could end up with a more decentralized thing from that as well. And the UI needs an improvement, and layer 2 voting should be implemented. Both those are also pretty reasonable. The UI component is actually something that my partner Neil has been working on. He has some mock-ups about kind of like a revamped members portal where it pulls together the different this is something that we had a follow-up post kind of queued up for, where right now, to work with the DXgov ecosystem of applications, you have to go to Mesa, you have to go to Omen, you have to go to these separate places. And we thought it would be a good idea to have just like a one-stop shop interface where you come to this this page, you have the different suite of services available to you as a member across all these different products, all easily used from one place. And then you could also participate in governance from there, so you can stake your DXD there. You can vote on proposals, things like that, and kind of just pulling that all together into one place. Because if you think about some of the strengths of DXDAO, it's the portfolio of stuff that it's built. And the best way to showcase that is to pull it all together and have it available to use in a simple place. And it's also the membership and getting people interested. So combining that too and making a better experience for governance would be a big part of that. And then layer 2 voting. I mean, you see a lot of stuff. People have talked about this for DXDAO before about just moving votes to like XDAI chain so that you have cheaper transactions and faster voting. Things like that. And we've been exploring that on our end as well. Like I said, Neil has a UI mockup, and we've been exploring like layer 2 governance a lot to help opine on that as well. So I think most of those points are like pretty solid, but I can concede that the gen stuff, really we just wanted to if we're going to add a token to voting power, we just wanted to take one out, but totally understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, I don't know if this was clear. I just wanted to pop in, so Gen right now doesn't actually have anything to do with voting power directly. Of course, it did, back with the original distribution, there was a thing where there was a sort of a Gen auction for rep that was part of that. But since then, it plays a utility role in governments, but it doesn't give you voting power.
Okay.
Yeah. No, we totally understood the boosting feature, and
Cool.
yeah, we weren't able to finish kind of this whole report because we wanted to get it out to you guys. This is kind of like a preview of the full thing before this governance call. But yeah, no, totally understand how the second point can be battle tested.
Cool.
But I guess for the other points, I know Augusto, you were saying that these issues weren't some of these issues you didn't agree with. Would love to kind of hear which other than the second one, which ones you kind of think that we're trying to solve a problem that doesn't exist.
Well, the most important one is the how do you need to, the necessity to attach the rep holders to DXD holders, why would I need to attach and show my personal treasury in to govern, right? Where all the reputation that I receive, I think, and it says in the manifesto, it's earned through the collaboration that you have on the organization. It shouldn't be, but yeah, that's why I think that's I think that is a non-existent issue, because it shouldn't be affected or by any other force outside the collaboration that how I help or how I collaborate to the organization somehow.
Yeah, and I understand wanting to have privacy. That's certainly a big part of it. The way we were thinking about this is it would still be anonymous addresses. It would just be more transparent on chain to see where power is concentrated. And then, the one nice thing with the staking component, and this is something we haven't mentioned yet, is if you tie rep to the DXD staking, you can still earn it from work, of course. But you get to a situation where, okay, now I want to unstake all my DXD and just sell in the market. What does that do to my rep? You can then penalize rep. So it's not just there in perpetuity; it's just there as long as you have skin in the game. So if I, take 1,000 DXD and I unstake and I go sell in the market, I lose the rep that I've been accumulating. And then, a week later, I change my mind, I come back and I restake that exact amount of DXD, my rep balance gets reset. And that also is really good for stickiness, because, people then just don't have capital at risk, which, capital is liquid in this space. It's also time invested. So, if I've spent 2 years staking and working for this DAO and I have a really nice rep balance, I wouldn't want to unstake my DXD, because I would risk losing a proportional amount of the rep that I've been accumulating. And it's a good way to keep, stickiness but also a nice way to, if people do eventually want to check out, the rep that they have isn't just, it's not their power in perpetuity. There's a way to, okay, if you want to leave, that's totally fine, but we'll just like, take away some of the rep power as a result. And I think that's pretty reasonable. Where as long as you're having skin in the game, you're participating, you're earning, you're committing to the future, you're going to have a lot of rep and you're going to have a lot of voting power. It's only when you don't want to make commitments, when you want to sell, like those are very common things to penalize.
Yeah, I just wanted to give my final thoughts on this, and let other people say say what I think. I like a lot the enthusiasm. I mean the initiative in trying to solve this, because I think the DXG needs to have a role in governance. But the problem I see personally with this proposal is that it is very far away from what we have been working on the organization, the workers around us itself. We have been working in ERC 20 guild. We are planning to create DXC guild that will give reputation to DXC holders. We are issuing vesting contract for other workers to attach to give DXC and create that necessity of DXC appreciation to the workers itself. So we are trying to issue more DXC alongside rep investing schedules. And we have been working also on improvement on the UI and different changes that can be applied in the voting machine to make it more cost efficient. So there has been a lot of work on our side that has completely is trying to solve all these issues that you are presenting, and think that it magically gets solved with the formula, which I think that's not the way. I think the other workers, the other people here will feel the same, because this is work that it has been done in different fronts to attack all these issues at once, and not with just creating a formula. So yeah, this is what I think, that it should be more aligned about what the work is being done in trying to solve these issues.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I want to be clear, right? Like, we definitely didn't intend to, just push this forward and have this the one-all-be-all solution. We kind of just wanted to contribute to the DAO. And, I think the best way forward, honestly, would maybe be like a mix of ideas, right? I think that almost always will help out. And our main initiative here was not only taking care of the current members of the DAO, which we are as well, but more so incentivizing more new members and more community members to start getting attached. Because, especially with the current state of the markets and how we're seeing markets play out in the next 12 to 18 months, we think it's really important that DXDAO has a lot of incentives for people to join and start participating in these, without kind of just, with presenting this new model. I think it really has that balance of keeping current DAO members, especially if they're going to continue to participate and be involved, happy, while also being able to allow newcomers to come in. And, if someone didn't hear about DXDAO till maybe December of this year, if they really work for it, by in a few months, they can actually end up, having good influence in the DAO, as long as they show that they're long-term, aligned with the DAO.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And to echo,
I have a question.
Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm curious if you guys looked into the general growth of the DXDAO collective in terms of rep minted, based on since the bonding curve genesis, and in general how the DXDAO grew in terms of active participants, which means active workers.
Yeah, we don't have it in this report, but one of our first report that we shared to the forum has more of the historical stuff and data on the rep distribution and stuff in that sense. But I'm curious to hear if there was a specific part of that you think would have a lot of be important right here.
Yeah, like I think in general the DXDAO is growing very healthy in terms of people who really believe in the DXDAO and not just workers, which means new addresses, new identities who have rep. This grew substantially since the DXDAO is actually doing something important. And I think that is something you guys completely missed out. And I would love to see like much more data on how many people joined actually the DXDAO, not community members who are like outside contributors who currently are in the process of getting invited to the collective. And that's like, I think more than 10 members. Like overall, there's like way less analysis about how the decentralization of the DXDAO is actually progressing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
did
a
you
fair
have
point. And the way we were thinking about it, like you said, there's 10 new members joining. We were approaching this from the standpoint of, we want, thousands of members to join. So can certainly have been growth, but now that we're in an era of fair launches and everyone's coming in and getting an evenly distributed amount of governance tokens, and especially right now because DeFi and DAOs are kind of primed to really grow in the coming years. We think it's a great time to really grow membership by a lot and attract long-term oriented people. So I'm sure decentralization could have improved, and I absolutely believe that members have been coming. We're new members ourselves. But we wanted to really get a system in place where we could really kick that up to like the nth degree, and not just and get it primed for there. And if even though decentralization may be improving, like there is a significant concentration of rep at the top, and that could be fine right now. But ideally through a higher issuance rate of rep and distribution to new members and existing members, we get to a situation where it's a lot more balanced. And Neil,
Yeah,
I'm not sure how much rep we've earned from this, but it's very small relative to the amount of rep that's concentrated at the top. So it is very hard to come in and have any type of meaningful say, and that's totally fair. Newcomers have to kind of work for it, but that's also what we wanted to address in different aspects of the formula where okay, I don't have a lot of reputation. I'm still relatively new, but I'll make a really big financial commitment in my DXD stake, and I'll make a really long-term commitment to this and lock it up for a year, so I have more say in governance. And that's those types of situations are what we wanted to gear for in this.
Yeah, I totally understand that, but my belief is that decentralization comes over time. People call it progressive decentralization. We actually have mechanics in place which will make sure that we will set goals to decentralize, and we can actually keep track of decentralization by actually giving out rep to several interest groups, especially like our products. But the thing is, we are live for 3 months. That's way too early to decide huge changes in terms of the whole governance. We are right now ratifying a manifesto which defines how we do governance. And right now we're having a call which will ditch everything we worked on for 3 months. And that is something I can't accept.
Luckily, Clark is. It's not like this proposal is going to go through by the end of the day. I think this is, we're kind of kicking off a discussion here, and I think the DXDAO governance is insulated from those kind of rapid changes.
Mm.
So
I had just a couple of comments that kind of keep the conversation going. One, I think the forward-looking commitment is a really interesting idea, and figuring out how governance decisions and proposal votes kind of introduce some future-looking aspect, I think is a really cool idea. I think it kind of highlights the importance or possibility of permissionless rep, which is something we've been talking a lot about, which is kind of hard to figure out exactly how to do, but how can we kind of create maybe on-chain functions that people can fulfill and give some kind of permissionless rep to that. And then kind of there are really two separate issues here. One is giving DXD holders a say in governance, and the second is making rep holders have some skin in the game in the form of DXD. I think those are both really important issues. I think they could be tackled separately, could be tackled together, but I think those are two separate issues that we need to kind of address. And then I think lastly, this is kind of stating the obvious, but decentralization depends at the core more than anything else on rep issuance and rep inflation. So we just need, if we're talking about kind of decentralization, pushing that forward, and we think of governance, at the end of the day, it's very important to have good rep issuance to good governors.
Absolutely.
Sorry, there was no question, but I'm sure there are other questions in that from others.
Yeah. So maybe I'll say a few things. First of all, thanks for all of this. I think this is great, and it's an interesting to see a research of a DAO. And yeah. So first of all, thanks for all these things. I think we will need to play with kind of the model and see how this will work and if it will make sense. And I like the idea of lock.dxt to the future, and then if it's lost, so if you unstake, you kind of lose that reputation. But I think there's maybe some kind of maybe core issues that you started from, which are, I don't know, maybe incompatible with what DXDAO thinks. I think generally the goal would be to incentivize DXD holders to become rep holders, so they could join and contribute to the DAO in whatever their expertise is. I think this entire paradigm of DAOs follows the ownership economy, and while we need to serve kind of the interest of the investors and people who put money, it's the participants and contributors and users of the DXDAO product that should have sort of precedent and I don't want to say hold the majority of voting power, but it's kind of they should have a bigger say. The investors will have financial incentive, in case this organization succeeds. And yeah, so that's kind of on that. From a technical perspective, I'm not sure if how would you even implement something like this, because you're basically voting power is something that's kind of floating. It's not a part of 100. You don't get your voting power as a part of a whole. So I don't know how this will be calculated on the blockchain. And yeah, something that I dislike is that you're tying basically my holding of DXD to my reputation, and this kind of hurts privacy. But understand that if you want to incorporate DXD holders with voting power and rep, then this has to happen. Maybe sometime in the future we'll be able to find different solutions. So yeah, these are some comments.
Yeah, no, appreciate that. Yeah, no, I think it makes sense. Yeah, I mean, honestly, we do have a pretty thorough model that we can share in the Keybase as well. And I think a few of you guys, whoever want to play with it, I think the tabs are pretty self-explanatory. Maybe MJ, you want to quickly go through the model just so everyone on the call quickly knows?
Yeah, I can definitely share that. Let me just switch my screens. But all really good points.
Yeah, and also we definitely didn't intend to, say we're throwing away anyone's, work over the 3 months. We really think this should be like a community effort. We do a lot of consulting for projects in the space, and even then, even if we're working with a team, it always is a community kind of aspect where we'll work with the teams, get really good points, have a discussion very similar to this, where people will push back. I think we like sharing these kind of big ideas, and then hopefully kind of funnels into something that works best for everyone. But no, really appreciate all the comments, guys.
Yeah. So this is after we share this, we'll post this on the forum after. Pretty streamlined. Inputs some explainers on how what that does and where it's at. Simple enough. The rep multiplier, breaking that out based on rep balances. Obviously, if you look at our report, we did look at the historical data and the current data for rep distribution to get a sense of what this type of multiplier would mean. And I think the really important part here is if you focus in on the y-axis, the multiplier you get for voting power is pretty significant in this from rep. So if you're just like a mid-tier like DXD holder and you've been working on the DAO and you have a lot of rep, like you're gonna have really good voting power because it's being multiplied by a good amount. Whereas if someone just buys up a lot on the market and comes in, they're not gonna have any rep, they're not gonna have this voting power. That could really make a big difference. So approaching it that way, where like a DXD holder can have a lot of voting power if they have a large amount of rep and they're committed to the future. If it's just a lot of DXD, then they're not going to get the multipliers, and they're going to end up having very little voting power. So just that concept is, I think, what we were a fan of. But obviously you can toggle the inputs, you can change the shape of the curves. There's a lot of flexibility with what you can do. So rep voting multiplier, very similar page for future days staked. If you toggle the inputs, then all of this adjusts, and we give like little tips in the notes on what it's going to do. And then if we go to rep issuance, very similar thing. All these charts are in the proposal of just like charting it out. Scenario analysis might be the most interesting one for us to focus in on, and this is one where we took the and this is a few days old, so apologies if anything's changed. But we took the top rep holders and like we said, sorted them in descending order, and then we assessed how much rep they have. So currently the top 10 rep holders make up about 50% of the voting power. So it's a little concentrated at the top. And then we did we took the top DXD, same thing. So list all the addresses with DXD ranked from the highest amount to the lowest amount, and a lot of these aren't individuals. We should just say that a lot of these could be different. One of these could be Mesa. One of these could be like a Uniswap pool. Like there are we're aware of things that these aren't holders, but we wanted to be very conservative, and we wanted to assume that top rep holder, let's say they're also the top DXD holder. What would that look like in the context of this formula? And then let's assume different forward-looking commitments to kind of see how this could change voting power overall. This goes on for, I believe, 400 different accounts, but it really tapers off at the end. So, most of the stuff is from the top. And yeah, like we said in the thing, we toggle different forward-looking commitments, and then you can kind of simulate like, based on this framework and based on these parameters, how does the voting power change like day one? And, it's really, we have 3 scenarios. One of them leads to, the top 10 rep holders having more voting power, and the other 2 are more distributed amongst existing members. And I think that's really important. Like, this adjustment isn't just for new members, which we want to make it very easy for them. But the idea is well, like we have a big existing member base. How do we get the other people more involved as well? And these are all things that you'll be able to toggle. But there was a good amount of analysis that went into the math. But like we were saying, we're not married to anything. We just really wanted to get the convo started on what we think could be important.
Yeah, I think the scenario analysis tab is going to be, like Medio said, the most important to play around with. You could do some situations where someone has 10 DXD or 5 DXD, and start giving them a lot of rep to say this person has doesn't have that much financial capital, but they work really hard for the DAO, and hopefully the DAO also rewards them with some DXD potentially, but that's for another story, I guess. But say their rep does go up. It's exactly what MJ was saying earlier, where that rep multiplier, and even if they only have a few DXD, but if they stake it for the long term, because they are long term aligned with the DAO, then they actually end up having a good amount of influence, more influence than I think they'd be able to get during their current model.
Yeah, so like this is something interesting. If I could produce like 50 different accounts, and each one of them will have just a minimum amount of rep, just like doing something small for the DAO, and then fill up these accounts with a lot of DXD, have it staked, and then sort of Sybil attack the DAO this way. So I'm just wondering, like,
yeah, it would have to be
So the really big thing that isn't captured here, but is very important to make sure it's not gameable, and we encourage other people to kind of explore this as well, is this assumes that the top the 400 addresses that have rep, this assumes that everyone participates, stakes some DXD, and is involved. Of course, it might be a situation where only 100 people of the existing member base do it, or vote, or things like that. So in situations where there's not a lot of participation, I think those are the edge cases that we want to maybe zone in on as like an attack vector here, because if not that many other people commit or participate, then perhaps we get a situation out of this existing formula where the top 10 rep holders have much more influence than they currently do. So things like that could be really good to test, but we'll make all this available so everyone can play with it.
Yeah, I think for that question too, the futures they staked is really important too, right? So if this person does split up their DXD and has a little bit of rep, which to get that rep, I'm sure that person would have to be aligned with the DAO in some way, because they'd be working or something like that. But even say they got this rep magically, they had a little bit of DXD in a lot of different accounts. The big way that they could get a lot of influence would be by doing very long stake. So if they did do an attack or something like that, it would kind of be counterproductive.
Yeah.
But the thing is, they only need one transaction, like one proposal to pass, and so like they can they can stake it for a long time, and then I guess unstake it after they've done whatever malicious attack they've managed to do.
So yeah, that's a great question. So if you were to unstake it, you lose your rep. So the nice thing about this formula is that that's a situation that it's hard to just get like transient attackers that way in this formula, because if you're coming into attack, you can buy up a lot of DXD, but you can't buy rep at all. You have to earn that over time. So you're not going to get that multiplier, which is massive component of your voting power. And with the future day staked, if you don't stake, if you're not even going to commit for like one more day of staking your DXD, your voting power can actually be penalized. So it's not even just getting multiplied at that point. You can actually penalize short-termism out of the membership and really be like, okay, we have 10 guys that are gonna lock their stuff for a year, and they have a ton of rep, and it's not that much DXD, but all these other factors combined to giving them a lot of influence. And then that's a good situation, because people that are most committed with the most skin in the game to have it. So you get a situation where it is hard to kind of just pull off an attack like that, because you're not getting your multiplier, and you might even get penalized.
What I really like about this is that you guys have like kind of taken a very systematic, like analysis-based approach. So like I think this is a very like complex topic, right? And there's a lot of these things are going to require like much deeper analysis and like more debate, et cetera, forming consensus and stuff. But I mean, I think it's really cool that you guys have like taken the time kind of on your own initiative to dig in like this, and like really appreciate that.
Mm-hmm. Yep, happy to help.
Something you guys mentioned in your initial report too, that I think is another area that we probably need to unpack a little bit, is how there's a lot of like dead rep, and I think that kind of gets into the dichotomy between like, okay, there was the whole initial staking period where like 400 addresses got what even today constitutes most of the rep, versus like what has actually been earned in the meanwhile, really mostly in the recent like 4 or 5 months as activity has picked up. I think we'll need to tease that apart a bit and see, because I think some of these numbers can be deceiving because a lot of it is based on, like hundreds of those 400 are very small from the initial staking period, and probably the vast majority of those people have forgotten that they even took part in the initial staking period. Like there's aspects of this like that we probably need to shed some light on.
It would also be good to get your guys' feedback on, like Augusta mentioned a handful. There's like probably 4 or 5 initiatives that have been running to address these same issues that we're all trying to solve. But instead of, like, your thing is like build a whole new building from the ground up, like redo the way DAO Stack works. Like it's a huge master project, which is possible, would take a long time, and if it's even possible. And then your feedback, knowing all this stuff on all the 5 initiatives that are also already in the works that are trying to accomplish and fix the same issues, and how we could make those initiatives better would also be really helpful, I think.
Yeah. We'd love to dive into those with greater detail and kind of see how we can maybe fuse certain parts of this into what you guys have been working on.
Maybe we need to organize those better, because also on Twitter, like Vitalik and Martin and a whole bunch of people are also talking about the same exact, solving the same issues. And I don't think anyone has like all of the information because it's spread out all over the place.
Yeah. And you bring up really good points. We'll definitely look into that. And then just to jump back to the dormant rep, because that's something we hadn't addressed yet on this end. We're thinking about, do you slash dormant rep holders? Like, how do you do that? And with the rep inflation model, the idea was, you might not really have to, because, deciding who gets slashed might be like a trickier thing to accomplish, of like, who makes, like, who's getting slashed, who's not, could be very contentious. So we took the standpoint of, let's just kind of fix things, like, or, get these things reweighted moving forward. Right. And that's where like the issuance comes into play. So, if someone had a lot of rep from way back when, it's not using it, not participating, they're going to get diluted away over time as other members accumulate rep. But on the flip side, like if you already have a lot of rep, you can still gain a lot more through new issuance as well. So it's really kind of just like a forward-looking thing of, we have this existing distribution, but how can we maybe make it a little more balanced and a little more updated based on current and future members?
Yeah, it can almost be thought of as like a work farming initiative. But the influence that you gain can be inflated away too if you don't keep participating. That's what we kind of liked about it and how we were thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think that's an interesting aspect that has really not gotten much attention. Is like, what happens when people like retire or move on, right? If they've accumulated a lot of rep, yeah, it's good to start thinking about that.
Mm-hmm. And to your point, John, like in this approach, if someone does retire and they just want to like kind of walk away, they unstake their DXD. The rep, you could have a system in place where as soon as you unstake, that rep is then burned. Which is the type of automated dynamic I think you kind of want to scale things up as well. And it always makes rep a thing of like active participation where it's based on your historical work, but it still matters like what you're doing moving forward, if you still have skin in the game and if you're still working for the DAO.
Yeah, it basically gives control of the DAO to the current existing participators. And
yeah, I think thinking like that is important, and I think there's probably a lot to unpack about how to actually structure it. But I think that idea is really important. Yeah,
and then like not because this is something that's not like a major thing, but like the UI and this is something that Neil can share soon as well. of just making it like a very simple place of like, you know, I'm a member, I go to one portal, I use everything, I stake, I vote all in one spot, and just making that experience really good. It can be really powerful and just like boost things on its own. Where, you know, like people had said, like things are very like all over the place right now. In different, like there is information on different websites, you know, different apps are being used, you know, different, things are just in different places. It'd be great if we could just, you know, condense that down into one really great user experience as like a members portal, because that will really play into the benefit of, that'll really play into the strength of the DAO, which is, you know, we have all of these different things under our umbrella. Here's one place where you can access and see them all very, very clearly. And that could go a long way, I think.
But yeah, guys, if anyone has any other questions, obviously feel free to, you know, reach out. We're on, you know, we're in the Telegram groups, we're in the Keybase group, we're on the forums. You can find us at Twitter too, at Anil Delphi, at Mido Delphi. Our DMs are open. But we'll post this Excel on the Keybase and the forums. Additionally, we'll be wrapping up. You know, the other two parts of our proposal are, you know, one, MJ's alluded to, the UI kind of, it's just like a quick mock-ups to show you the direction we're thinking of. And two is, you know, looking at the bonding curve more and what we can do there. But yeah, these are basically, you know, our kind of ideas. We just wanted to share how we're thinking about the space. Hopefully it does inspire some good discussion where, you know, even these 5 initiatives that you guys are working on, we didn't want to detract from that work or, you know, take away anything from that. We just really wanted to contribute to the DAO, show you how we're thinking about it, and hopefully bring some new ideas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just want to say that I think maybe the best way to progress here, or like one of the ways, would be to start up like a working group, specifically with you guys, with a few people from DXDAO, possibly with like Martin. If Vitalik wants to join, then, you know, we'll accept him. And
he's
yeah,
almost tweeting about DXDAO now. He's like dangerously close.
Yeah. So yeah, like we need to figure out how to do that. And I mean, obviously this is like a long process. And yeah, there'll be experiments as we go along. So yeah, I don't know if some people want to.
Yeah, no, that'd be great.
Yeah, and one of the framings I think is helpful that we've been kind of using is this governance 1.x and governance 2.0, because we do kind of mix up a lot of these initiatives, because there's a lot of things we're like, well, we're trying to get this out the door now, we're trying to, you know, fix something that we can implement, versus things that really are like a complete redesign. And I think there's, you know, good, you know, pretty widespread consensus on the need to align a long-term alignment, which will lead to some kind of complete governance redesign. So yeah, I think we need to kind of just bucket these in the 1.x and then the governance 2.0. But I think like a working group kind of on that is a great idea. Mm-hmm. I think I'm thinking about just thinking out loud and making kind of a post dividing some of these things in the buckets and where we're kind of at and so where we can go forward.
It's interesting to also kind of realize that there are a lot of other projects that are iterating on their governance and other DAOs that are kind of planning to be launching soon too. So I do feel like there's sort of a wide open opportunity here that a lot, this sort of reputation-based system is kind of a nice contrast to a lot of the other stuff out there and hasn't really been kind of figured out yet.
Yeah, absolutely. And I, you know, on that point, I think like right now there's very interesting opportunity for DXDAO not to just like, you know, update the governance, but really like have a model that, you know, sets like a precedent for the space where, you know, everyone else has, you know, potentially, you know, weaker governance models, you know, but DXDAO could really be like the best in class where, you know, yeah, there's a lot of decentralized communities out there, but you know, that is like one of the best governance models I've seen. And then, you know, if you have like, you know, governance, having a good governance system is so important for this DAO that that could be one of its like hallmarks of, you know, that people are impressed by and attracted to. And it like, if we have a really good model that we can put out there, then it'll attract a lot of interest and a lot of newcomers, I think, as well.
Yeah, and I think this conversation was great. We're pretty grateful to be able to chat with all you guys and have this much participation. It really was what attracted us to DXgov in the first place. If you go back and read our report, there are a lot of DAOs out there that they don't even have a weekly call, but even if they do, they'll get a fraction of the participation that even this call got. And even then, if you share ideas there, people will usually, it's just a bunch of yes man. So, we like our ideas being challenged. It makes us think, through it even more. So yeah, no, appreciate everyone's time.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. I just want to kind of go over a couple things. I'm mindful of time, but there were a couple of things just to kind of think about. So first, manifesto. Just vote on it. It's on Alchemy right now. We're at like 23%. So that's good. I think it's got another 3 days in the queue there. Very